So I've been away for 2 weeks. It's been pretty nice. It's been nice to stop and rest. I spoke on rest 2 weeks ago. I did that intentionally just before I went away, and I managed to find some rest in that time. Anyone else found rest? Any rest over the past 2 weeks? Anyone had a nap? Any point? I have. No one? Okay. Some of you still got some work to do. I'll say it was nice and easy I started for you. Start with napping, okay? Before we get on to maybe some of the stuff that's a little bit more tricky. But we were talking about rest, and I must admit, Rob, I've not listened to your talk from last week yet, because when I'm resting, I don't just spy on what's going on here all the time. I actually stop and rest and don't look at what's going on here. So I will at some point, Rob, listen to what you spoke on last week. But today, I'm going to be talking about something called fellowship. Now, fellowship is not a word we use very much anymore. In fact, even hearing me say that, most of you will have instantly gone to the Lord of the Rings. As soon as you hear the word fellowship. John, you clearly went straight there. No, I did when I read the word fellowship of the ring. Or if you Google the word fellowship, it turns out that only really posh societies use the word fellowship. The fellowship of. It's often like really highly educated people, the upper class. We don't tend to use the word fellowship anymore, even though it is a word that appears in the Bible. I'm not arguing to bring it back, by the way, because I think if we start using it, we'll make people who are not part of the church think, who are you? That just sounds weird, okay? But I think we need to understand what the concept of fellowship is, because we're in a series over the summer of looking at rhythms of life. And so that's why I looked at rest, and Rob would have looked at what he did last week. I'm going to talk about fellowship and what fellowship is and how it should be an important rhythm to our life, to be in fellowship. Now, this word, fellowship, when it's translated in the Bible right back to the original, it means fundamentally holding something in common. That's what it is. People who hold something in common. The New Testament uses this sort of word for fellowship 20 times, and it's a significant term in the New Testament, and it refers to this association for the purpose of mutual involvement. It means being together based around a common goal, ultimately. That's what it is. And that's what we see in the church, isn't it? We're based together around a common goal of worshipping Jesus, of thanking him for all he has done, coming to him, finding salvation in him. We're coming for a common goal. And it's defined in the Bible of this unity of the Spirit that comes from these shared beliefs, convictions, and behaviors. See, fellowship, and I think this is where we've lost the meaning of it sometimes. Some people still use this word. I still get people who occasionally say to me, oh, thanks for the fellowship today. I'm kind of like, oh, we're just hanging out. They mean the same sort of thing, but we're using different terms, okay? Thanks for the fellowship today, brother. I thought we were just having a pint or something at the pub, but that's okay. I know what you mean. But be careful, depending who you're talking to, they might think, that's a bit weird, isn't it? So just think about your language if you're going to use the word fellowship as to who you're with, because for some people, they'll think it's a bit odd. But it implies more than socializing. This idea of this fellowship, this sharing common beliefs, it's something that's often demonstrated through a spiritual, social, and material generosity towards each other. That's what it is. That's how we're going to look to work it out. And as I sort of look at it today, as we unpack it today, as we look at some verses concerning things around fellowship today, I want us to consider how as a church, how as individuals, we can find fellowship in our lives together through three things. One of them is worshipping together. One of them is learning together and encouraging each other. Possibly my favourite one, the final one, is eating together. Okay? I think churches play this one down too much, and we should do this one more nowadays. And we're going to look at some verses together. Hello. That's all right. Oh, done. Yeah. Cancelled. Microphone's gone off. Not quite. We're going to look at some verses together and try and unpack them and see what they look like and figure out as a church how we put this into context for us today. So first thing I'm going to look at is John 13, 34 to 35, where it says this. It says, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. See, in the early church, as Jesus was banding these group of people together, he was very aware that he was putting together a group of people that came from very different backgrounds. That's not much difference in the church today, is it? We come from very different backgrounds. We have different histories. We might come from different parts of the world. We have very different cultures we might bring with us. We use different language. All sorts of things come together, and you end up with this weird group that we call the church. Okay? But as Jesus was sort of starting to bring this group together, we start to find he starts to tell us certain things in the way we should treat each other. Love one another. Now that can be really hard when people see things very differently to you. It can be really hard to do if someone has a very different opinion on something to you. You know, and sometimes it can leave pain, it can leave problems. Sometimes it can even lead to, if you don't deal with some things, it can lead to unrest, it can lead to division, it can lead to real relational problems in any group of people. It can happen if we don't learn to love one another. Now, loving one another doesn't mean you have to agree with each other on every single thing. You won't agree with me on every single thing I might tell you. Now, some of the things that I like doing in life will not be some of the things you like doing in life. Like, part of my rest last week was gardening. Now, for some of you, Ben, that is not rest to you. That is the idea of manual labor and work, mowing the lawn. Whereas for me, I put my headphones on, I am happy. Okay? So even though we may think differently on certain things, and there's loads of other things as well, we could do in life, could be sports teams, it could be different music. We have to learn how to love each other, even though we might have some differences. But there will be times where, and you might have seen it if you've been around a church long enough, where churches don't seem to love one another in them. What tends to happen at that point is problems start arising and division starts happening, and you end up almost getting little factions in the church, little different groups with their own agendas. And you might think it's okay, we all think differently, but it's not okay. Because this verse also said, by this everyone will know that you're my disciples, which means people are looking at the church. Whether you think it or not, people are looking at a group like a church. And they will pick up on problems in a local church. If you're not getting along, if you can't love each other, the outside world, people who don't yet come into this building that we'd love to, will realize there are problems and there's disunity. It's a real challenge when it comes to fellowship. It's a real challenge when it comes to learning how to be together with shared beliefs, convictions, in the unity of the Spirit if we cannot love each other. Sometimes this happens, and sometimes churches can split because they just cannot love one another. And this is something we've got to learn. We've got to learn what it is to love one another. The answer to this is not to ignore other people because you know they're going to annoy you. Cut them out. That's not loving of someone, is it? I cannot stand that person. They smell. Or I don't like that person, the way they talk, the way they dress. They just irk me. Sure, some people might, but you can still love them. We've got to learn what that is. And sometimes we've also got to learn how to forgive as part of that, because sometimes people will hurt us. If I was to ask in this room who's ever been hurt by someone, every single one of you, I think, would put up their hand. We've got to learn how to forgive, because if we don't forgive, what happens is that unforgiveness can fester in our lives and can get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what might have been something small at the beginning can end up being huge and ends up causing a massive rift between you and someone else. And so there's relational elements to fellowship that we've got to learn within the church, because it's not just about us. It's about the world that we want to come to know Jesus. They notice. They pick up on things more than you realize. Okay? We want people to be going here, oh, you're the place where you'll kind of love it. You get along, right? Yeah, we are. That's us. That's who we are. Doesn't mean we all look the same. Doesn't mean we're creating robots. I don't want that. None of you want to look like me. I understand that. Okay? I wouldn't wish this upon anyone else. Okay? So we can be individual, but we've got to learn how to love each other in the midst of that. And that's going to be really, really important for us as we look to grow in this rhythm of fellowship, what it is to care for each other and love each other. But the next thing I want us to pick up on, and remember we're talking about worshipping together here, learning together, encouraging each other and eating together. The next one is this, John 14:23. It says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them." You know, a lot of you will know that bit. But then Jesus says, carries on saying, Jesus then replied, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching." Sorry, that was Matthew 18, and then this bit's John 14:23. "My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them." You see, part of fellowship is when we gather together, and it doesn't need to be just in this setting here. It could be a life group, which is our smaller group settings through the weeks. It could be you go out for coffee with someone. It could be you go to the pub with someone. It could be you go out for a meal with someone. I'm coming up with lots of food options for you, by the way, today. Okay? Jesus is there with you. He is there with you. Part of fellowship is being together. You know, I think there are times in life and where you think you can do the Christian life on your own. I could follow Jesus on my own. You can try, but I tell you what, it's going to be really hard. You need other people around you. Partly because Jesus says, where you start gathering in 2 or 3, I'm going to be with you. Now, he's with you individually, don't get me wrong, but there's something about when you get together with other people who have shared belief where you encourage each other, isn't there? There is something about it where you just think, oh, that has done my soul good. That has lifted me up in some way because I've been with someone. I feel encouraged by that. And when you get together, you can start to show love to each other by obeying his teaching. Because when you get together, you can start understanding what it is to be a follower of Jesus, to have this idea of fellowship together. Now, I'm not saying whenever you get together, you need to whip out your Bible, go into the Greek and the Hebrew, and start discovering all the original meanings behind the words. It could just be something really simple, like, I went out for a walk yesterday. I was down the beach, and it just reminded me of how big God is when I saw the ocean. It doesn't need to be heavy. I'm not saying you all need to carry your study Bibles around, and therefore you need to get a massive backpack that you walk around with just because the book's so big and won't fit in any other bag. And when you get there, you slam it down on the table, open it up. I don't think that's what it's saying at all. But I think we need to learn what it is, how to encourage each other by meeting together, and also try to understand how Jesus is asking us to live. Because the Bible says, if you obey my teaching, my Father will love them and come to them and make their home with them. That's what it is. Following Jesus isn't just coming and sitting in a building like this on a Sunday morning. If that's your experience of following Jesus, you're missing out. Because there's so much more to it. So much more to it. You know, it's about looking to follow him, what he tells us in the Bible. Because that's a way of showing your love for him. You know, I meet people who sometimes say, well, I love Jesus, but I don't like what he said here. Well, is that real love then? Because love is following him. Love is doing what he's asked us to do, even if we don't like it sometimes or struggle to understand it. That's what real love is. That is when he will come and be with us. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what fellowship is? We want to be with people. We want to be with others. And part of that is we've got to get out of our idea, and it's a British mentality of your home is your castle type thing, where this is my 4 walls that protect me, and actually start living as a community again. Now, I'm not saying we're all going to move into the church building. I've got a load of camp beds coming. We're going to do it. We're going to become a commune. We're not doing that. But what I'm saying is it means we've got to start spending time with each other. We've got to start getting out of our house and start seeing other people. And on that, one of the biggest challenges, I think, for our society is not just seeing family. When I say family, I mean blood family. I think that is really difficult. Because there'll be people in your church context who don't live near any blood family and won't have any. Now, if when I say this, you think, that's fine, I see my family every Sunday. What about those amongst you that don't have that near them? Who's gathering with those people? And this is when you start going, well, someone will. Yeah, but if that's everyone's mentality, then no one will. We've got to be careful that we don't see this in the wrong way. How do we gather? How do we obey? How do we show him that we love him? And the next thing I want to do is just Hebrews 10, 24 to 25, is just say this. It's say, where it says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day approaching. See, part of gathering together is spurring each other on. Part of coming out on a Sunday morning when you think, I could go to the beach, is spurring each other on. Part of gathering together midweek, maybe in a life group or a social group or whatever it might be, is spurring each other on. We need that. You know, we have moments in church life where people are spurred on. You know, I don't know how long ago it was now, a few weeks ago, months maybe, the ladies had a ladies' breakfast where they spurred each other on for the ladies that came. Ladies seem to be much better at this than men, by the way. Men just sort of get together and, how's football? They don't spur each other on the same way as women do. We've got to get better at this, men, by the way. But they got together, the ladies, had a breakfast, did a bit of worship. I think people shared a few different things and words. But it was encouraging. It was spurring each other on. They're meeting together. We need to be a church where we are meeting and spurring each other on, not, as it says here, giving up meeting together. Because sometimes that feels like the easiest thing to do. That might feel like the easiest thing to do in the moment, but you won't feel encouraged the other side of it. We need to be taking those opportunities, going, yes, it's a Sunday morning. I'm going to go and meet with each other and not only be spurred on myself, but spur someone else on. Encourage them. We need to be a church which is saying, yes, I want to take every opportunity to encourage someone in their faith. And once again, this isn't that being weird. I'm not saying you've got to come and, you know, in your I Heart Jesus t-shirt and that's going to encourage. No. Be normal, but you can spur someone on and encourage someone in their faith. There's so many ways you can do that. You know, even think of the prayer meeting this week. Let's come and pray. Let's come and spur one another on. Let's encourage each other. Because who doesn't need encouragement? We all need encouragement, don't we? How often in life do we feel like giving up? Could be over anything. A lot of the time. That's why we need encouragement. To encourage each other to keep going. Let's not give up. Let's spur one another on. Let's look for more opportunities. Maybe you would come up to the end of this and say, I want to spur some people. I've got a great idea. Oh yeah, I want to get men spurred on. Come and talk to me. And let's see if we can figure out making that happen. Okay? Oh yeah, I want to spur on this group of people. They need encouraging. Great, come and see me. Let's see if you can do that. If you're going to wait for me to do all the spurring on, I'm sorry, you're not going to be as encouraged as you want to be. It's going to take me a long time to get around each one of you and spur you all on and encourage you. It's got to come from the church. It's got to come from everyone. You can spur someone on, believe it or not. You may think, well, what am I going to say? Well, sometimes just your presence with them is all they need to be spurred on. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. Just be there. Just show up. Just meet with them. That's all it needs to be. Just want to look at 1 Peter 4, 8 to 11, where it says this. It says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. A way of showing love is offering hospitality. And I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it again from here until we get it. Hospitality does not mean a gourmet meal. Hospitality means, have you got a way of providing some kind of fluid in a cup in your home, hot or cold? And have you got something to sit on? If you can tick those boxes, you can offer hospitality. Okay? Hospitality does not mean You have to. Now, should your gift be that of cooking for others, I'm sure those people would gratefully receive the food. However, if it is not, you could still let someone in for a drink and to sit down with you. We could all do that, right? Any of us could do that. It's a way of showing love. It's a way of growing in fellowship. It's to do it without grumbling. If you're even sat there going, oh, I've got to let someone in my house, you're grumbling. Stop grumbling. They probably don't care if your house is not as tidy as you think it should be. They probably don't care if you haven't freshly painted all the walls this year. They probably don't care if you do not have the finest china in the world. They are probably just grateful that you have said, come in. That is what real hospitality is. Do it without grumbling. Don't make excuses. And this is where some of you, and this is also a mentality shift we need to take, some of you will be going, yes, well, I never get invited anywhere. Okay. Have you invited anyone to your house? Let's put the shoe on the other foot, because some of us do this. Oh, yes, I should get more invites. I never get invites. When was the last time you invited someone in? Let's go the other way round, because it happens. It does. And once again, this is one of those things where it doesn't say the pastor should offer hospitality to one another. If you're all waiting to come and have a cup of tea with me, for one, you'll be disappointed anyway. I'm not probably the best company. And for two, it's going to take a long time. No, it says offer hospitality. Above all, love each other. So it's talking to everyone. Everyone should offer hospitality. And even if you don't have in your house a way of providing liquid refreshment and a seat to sit in, there are these wonderful places called coffee shops which provide all that for a little bit of your money. Okay? You could arrange to meet at one of those. And why not even offer to pay for someone? Oh, imagine that. We could show love to each other in so many ways. And we could do it without grumbling. If we've got to get into this. This is part of fellowship. Fellowship is not just coming here on a Sunday and having the tea or coffee in there on a Sunday morning. That's an element of it, but there's so much more. Now, there will be times in life where you can't have anyone over. For instance, if you have got some horrific sickness bug, please don't invite anyone over. That should be obvious to say. But for most of us, or you might be housebound, you can't get out. There may be a number of reasons, but I think we can get better at this. I think we can get better at hospitality. And I'm going to even challenge you over things like, okay, after the service finishes, for those of you that normally come, and we sort of trundle off down the corridor and have tea and coffee, who sits with the same people every week? That's a rhetorical question. You don't need to put your hands up. It's not like I'm going to come around and slap your wrist or something. How about we start trying to meet some other people? Trying to sit, oh, but that's where I sit every week for coffee. Okay, try another chair. Or even this week, I say, it looks like the sun is shining at the moment, hopefully. Maybe we can go outside and try something. And there will be different chairs outside. Sit with some other people, get to know them. Don't just offer hospitality to the same people. Why not get to know someone new? Get to know them. Find out a little bit about them. What do they like? What do they dislike? My role means I get to find out all sorts about all of you, which is great, but I would love the church to know each other deeply. What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? You know, maybe you're not good at asking those questions. Well, go and practice asking those questions. Find out something new about someone. What kind of music do you like? What do you enjoy doing in your spare time? Just go and find out. You'll find all sorts of amazing things out about each other. And it's a way of loving each other. And I really want to encourage you in that. But just as I start to come towards, a little bit towards the end, a little bit of a pop quiz for you. How would you finish the following sentence? This sentence roughly appears 3 times in the Bible. The Son of Man came to... Any ideas? Seek and save the lost. Very good. Seek and save the lost, one point there. Anyone else? Give his life as a ransom for many, which you'll probably recognize. And the third one, which is least common, but I think is really, really important. Listen to this from Matthew 11:19. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. What, Jesus? Eating and drinking? Yeah, he was normal. Go figure. He came eating and drinking. He was called a friend of sinners. He ate with people. You know, I've met Christians who won't eat with people who are not Christians. Oh, I can't eat with them. Jesus did. You're being like one of the Pharisees. If that's your, go and eat with people. Go and drink with people. Now, caveat, the Bible says do not get drunk. So the little caveat on the side. However, Jesus came eating and drinking. It is part of normal life. It is part of fellowship. It is part of who we are. If round your table, or whatever table you sit at, or whatever tray you sit at, or whatever you sit at to eat, it is only ever just you or the same people, you are missing out. Now, I understand there'll be stages of life where it's really, really difficult. I get that. So if you're in a stage of life where it's really hard to, don't worry, don't beat yourself up. But as a church, we need to be recognizing, well, who's in a difficult stage? Maybe I'll invite them around mine. Ooh, there's a novel idea. But if the Son of Man came eating and drinking, shouldn't the church come eating and drinking? I was in the pub on, what night was it? Friday night. And I saw one of the carers from Little Pines. And she looked at me and said, oh, it's nice to see you having a beer. I think she was shocked that I was in the pub having a beer. And it was like, I had a little chat with her, and it was fine. And so people, it's a way of bonding over food and drink. It's really natural and really easy. You know, if you ever think, oh, I can't talk to people, or even if you think, here's the dreaded word in church, evangelism, the Bible doesn't tell me to go out into the streets with a placard and a bell and start screaming at people, you must be saved. Jesus went around eating and drinking with people. That sounds more like my kind of evangelism. I'm pretty sure all of you could eat and drink with people, couldn't you? Yes. You all could, okay? So I'm not going to say right now after this service, we're going to go onto Westmore's High Street, the epicenter of Dorset, with Bibles, screaming Bible verse at people. But I might say to you, who could you eat or drink with today? Or tomorrow? Or the day after? Who can you eat and drink with this week? Who is it that you could be around and share a meal with? Maybe it's not a full meal. Maybe cooking's not your thing. Maybe you can't get past toast. Fine. Stick with a drink. Still can't make tea? Water comes out of tap, ready-made. Okay? Start there if you know, hospitality is a real struggle for you. That's okay. Otherwise, there are certain tutorials you can watch online now, videos. You could learn to cook most things if you really want to. But this is a challenge for us when it comes to fellowship, even within a local church context. When was the last time you invited someone over? When was the last time you invited someone over who you've never had over before? I want you to really go away thinking about those things and try to put them into practice. You know, if we're going to be a church which is growing relationally together in this concept of fellowship, one of the easiest ways for us all to do it is eating and drinking. It really is. It really is. My challenge for you today would be, who could you invite this week? You know, I've had a lot of people down the years in church life say to me, oh, we're not connected with anyone. I just feel we're distant, we don't have friends. No one's ever invited us. Well, it works both ways, by the way. Have you invited anyone to yours? Well, no. Do you stay for tea and coffee on a sermon? No. Are you part of a life group? No. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to build relationally, if you want to connect with others, get stuck in with things. And you'll start eating and drinking and building relationships together. And it is an amazing thing. I'm not coming at you talking about a rhythm of life again. Last time I told you to nap and to rest, This time I'm telling you to eat and drink with people. The rhythm of life of following Jesus is not one where he says, I want to put more on your shoulders. It's one where he says, come to me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'm not coming to you and saying you must have all these strict disciplines in your life which make your life almost miserable. I'm saying let's live life as Jesus did. Let's learn to build fellowship in a way that Jesus did. Let's eat and drink with others. You know, as we go and have a coffee, a tea, or whatever it might be in a minute, don't stop at that. Invite someone. Ask them if they're free. Let's figure out who needs it the most at the moment. Let's make sure Valerie doesn't have a moment free. Okay? She needs it at the moment, more than most of us in this room. Let's flood her with so many invites, she almost doesn't know what to do. Okay? Because that's what loving one another is, isn't it? Going, okay, who needs these invites more than anyone else at the moment? Right, over there. Let's flood her with invites. Okay?